This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Hello, and welcome. Happy spring. Starting to feel like it, I think, a lot of the places that we are across the globe. What about with you, Ross Hackerson? He's joining us here today live to talk more about, an affair of the heart. And of course, this is his coaching and therapy practice based out of Western Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Auburn, California. I mean, he's all over the place. We're excited he's back here to talk more to us today. And we're, really going to talk about how people get stuck in that habitual behavior, right? Those negative patterns of behavior, shall we say. So let's talk about bad habits today, bad relationships, compulsions, addictions, everyone. This is exciting stuff. I think it's most of the stuff we talk about, right, at the coffee water table and stuff at work. So we have been talking about the negative patterns people get stuck in during relationship and life in general. But, talking about negative patterns of behavior, you say often that gets connected to positive feelings. So we're going to talk about how and why that happens. So Ross, first and foremost, welcome back today. How are you?
Oh, Jill, thank you. I'm very well. I'm so happy it's spring. I mean, where we are, Western Massachusetts, we don't have leaves on the trees yet. I live out the country, and I'm just so happy for the warmth. What I was saying is, I wish winter would end. Now that it's ending, I'm going. Is it too soon? Am I ready for spring and summer?
Yeah.
I think so.
Good.
So,
well, for those who don't know about you, give us a little overview as to who you are, what you do.
Jill, I'm a life coach. I have had a long and successful career as a therapist, and I retired from that and am just doing coaching now. Group called An Affair of the Heart.us.
Mm-hmm.
We're a collaborative therapists, coaches, maybe in the mix. And we are, as you said, we cover the United States. We have people in California, on the East Coast. Don't really have any, but that may happen in the. We work with couples, relationship, addictions. We work with recovery and relapse prevention. We're a group that has a lot of experience, and we really. So, yeah, there you have it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you back here. And let's begin. How do a person's negative patterns of behavior really get connected to positive feelings? Let's start there.
Jill, I think that is the perfect question. How does a person's negative pattern of behavior, say overeating or pornography, something like that, how does that get connected to a positive feeling? Say behaviors like isolating, feeling bad about yourself. How do those things get tied to positive feeling? The real question for me then is, how does that then go on to become a compulsion or an addiction? How about we weave together an answer and a few good examples?
Okay.
Does that work for you?
Absolutely.
So, to do that, we need to set the scene just a little bit, and then start thinking.
Okay.
So, a question for everyone. Of course, John, I'm going to ask you the question, but everyone listening, think about this. What is the first rule of life?
First rule of life? I don't know.
Well, Jill, do you have a guess? What is the first rule of life?
Breathe.
Breathe. Why would you? I know. I think you're right you're on track.
Okay.
Why would you breathe?
In order to live, you have to breathe first. So you gotta start breathing once you disconnect from that umbilical cord and get out of
Right. So you actually buried it in there. In order to live, you have to breathe. And the first rule of life is basically to survive. Right. We're going to survive. It's like our biological imperative, right? Survive. That even goes so far as to talk about pass your genes on so
Mm-hmm.
that we survive as a species. Now I know this is a setup for answering that question about how positive feelings get connected to negative behaviors. But so the corollary, or I should say, what follows from the idea that the first rule of life is to survive,
Mm-hmm.
that means that all behaviors are survival behaviors.
Oh, okay.
All behaviors,
Okay.
all behaviors are survival behaviors. You have a look on your face, Jill. Tell me what happens there.
Yeah, it's like survival of the fittest. Yeah, we have to do whatever we can to thrive, to live. Oh gosh, that sounds so bad. But we gotta eat. We gotta. If we don't have food, we gotta steal it. We gotta yeah. We gotta. I get it. Mhm.
You get it?
Mhm.
It's exactly that, pretty much that simple and that complex. I know it's difficult to think about negative behaviors. For
Yeah.
example, cutting or eating disorders or consistent oppositionality. How do we think of those behaviors as survival behaviors? There's there's the difficulty we run up against. Say, all
Okay.
right, first rule of life, survive.
Uh huh.
That what follows is all behaviors are survival behaviors.
Mhm.
How about those negative behaviors?
Yeah.
Um, so let's start with an example.
Okay.
And hopefully I can stay on track this week, Joe, and not run over.
We're good.
Um, in context, what are we looking for? Why do we know what to do? Why do we do what we do? Survive. In an earlier podcast, we talked about Annie. Um, Annie, at 5 years old, was sexually molested
Mm.
on a regular basis by her uncle. And one of these days, Jill, we'll go sideways and talk about what's going on in our society that I see this so often.
Yeah.
But that's another talk. That's a rant. Don't get I won't get started. So he molested her. She's 5 years old.
Mm.
He tells her it's her fault
Mm.
because she's so pretty and she's so friendly and outgoing and she
Ah.
wears such pretty clothes. And you know what he also did? Still, he threatened her. He said, "You tell anybody what I've done and what we have done here, because of you, of course,
Mhm.
I will hurt you and I will hurt them."
Okay.
So, where does a 5 year old go with that? Um, Stay in thinking. Annie is compromised, right? She has no safety, no power, no control in her own life. She did is she developed a pattern of isolating from other people,
Okay.
of doing negative self talk,
Yep.
of being physically unclean
Mhm.
and unkempt, right?
Yeah.
She became a dirty little girl.
Ah.
Let's face it,
Mhm.
talking bad about herself and hiding from people.
Yeah.
Clearly a survival pattern. Think about that. A survival pattern of negative behavior developed in response to her uncle's words and actions and designed to keep Annie safe. Is this clicking? So, this pattern was developed by a 5 year old. It's hard to imagine she did it by sitting down and thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this and this. I just can't imagine that she sat down and thought it out. You're a woman in our society. You've been in danger since you were a kid. You did not sit down and think out those patterns. Um, I think she did a step just without much thinking, doing what she needed to keep him away and her safe. Do it. By the way, that's called in psychology. Her reward for being an unfriendly was being feeling safe on some level of consciousness. And I imagine on some level, she also felt a sense of power and control. Right? Now, that, Jill, is pattern development and instantly talk about it that way. As a coach, that's the way I would talk about it. This is what all this pattern. This is negative behavior, getting to positive personal feelings. That brings me to another question that I hope will guide our thinking. And this is, again, how do we know if doing leads to survival or not? I wonder if we touched on that in earlier podcast. But there's my question. How do we know, especially with patterns we created before we were really thinking and making meaning, how do we know that what we are? For instance, Jill, how do you know if you have had a good interaction with someone?
You feel good. You feel happy. You feel heard. You feel loved. I mean, yeah, you kind of just know if you get along with someone. I think, yeah, you just it's a feeling you get. Yeah,
That's right, Jill. I love talking to you. You nail it. It's like we have a feeling about it, right? Um, we have a feeling about it, and good feelings. If you have a good feeling, that means the behavior is survival oriented, right?
yeah,
And a bad feeling says survival limiting. Stop
yeah,
doing that one.
yeah,
Dun 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 dun. Right?
yeah,
If it feels good, it is good. I want to
yeah.
say that again, Jill. I laugh when I
Say it
say this.
again. Say it
If it
again.
feels good, it is good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of my mentor professors said that 40 years ago or 50 years ago in graduate school, and I didn't really understand it until the last few years. We are all looking to feel good. Feeling good tells us that what we are doing enhances our survival. So, the real payoff, how do I want to say this? The real payoff in human interactions are always about feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Feelings are our payoff, right? Good feelings mean I'm going to survive good interaction. In addictions, there's a saying, addicts are chasing a feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not only addicts that are chasing feelings. All of us are chasing feelings, right?
Yeah.
Um, we're chasing positive feelings about ourselves, positive feelings that say we will survive.
Mm-hmm.
We call that feeling in my coaching practice an assured survival feeling if we're dealing with addictions. And
Mm-hmm.
we call that feeling a positive, self affirming feeling
Mm-hmm.
if we're talking with persistent personal patterns.
Yeah.
All right, not to bore you to death with this, but returning to our original question, how
Yeah.
does a negative pattern get developed and installed? How does it become compulsive?
I don't know. Tell
Um,
us.
okay, going to use Annie again. Poor
Yeah. Poor
Annie,
Annie.
and I'm going
Yeah.
to I'm going to
No.
use Annie, and
No. Yeah.
I'm going to go through it a little more step by step, right? Sort of like what happens in a coaching session. First, person comes in, we say hello, we get attuned, those kinds of things. Um, and we talk about why the person is there and what they consider to be their problem. Okay. So in my first interview, I'm looking at these patterns and I'm going to ask the person how they define their problem. Annie came for coaching.
Mm-hmm.
She defined her problem as she said a pattern of avoiding others and isolating herself from other people
Mm-hmm.
and not taking care of herself physically. So she was always looking unkempt, uncared for. Her friends, her husband, they did not like that. That's Annie defining her problem. So next we talk about her goals. Now, I want to slow this down just a little. we're looking at, right, okay, she defines a problem. She actually defines it as a pattern. And that's what it is. And all right. So then we talk about her goals. Um, Annie's goal was to live a normal life. And I'm reading that off. I just wrote this down so I would get it right. To live a normal life and have friends and a social life.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'm thinking in a question I ask Annie. Remember, I'm putting this in a context of
Yeah.
feelings. So I say to Annie, well, what positive self affirming feeling are you going to have when you're leading that normal, how did I put it? Normal life and have friends and a social life, right? What kind of positive personal, self affirming feelings would you have if that was your life? My guess is you have one of those lives.
Mm-hmm.
You must probably have those feelings. I would expect an answer, Jill, like, I'm worthy, I'm
Mm-hmm.
lovable, I'm a good person, I feel safe and in charge of myself and my life, right? So now I've put this in a context of what is she looking for a normal life? What kind of personal feelings is she looking for? Worthy, lovable, power, control in life. And I'm guessing, and you probably are too, that she is not experiencing those feelings. Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Our theory of causation and change says behavior problems start in our history with our struggle to survive and define ourselves. Making sense?
Yeah.
Since resolving the persistent pattern will usually be disconnecting the positive self-affirming feelings from that persistent behavior pattern and assured survival feelings from addictions, it helps to know where to look for the positive feelings. Does that click for you, Jill? I'm sort of laying
Yeah.
this out now. I don't want to get lost in the theory. I want to talk about Annie
No.
a lot.
No, no,
But
no.
if people are looking for positive feelings about what? Existence, identity, safety, those are the areas of these feelings. Um, so Annie, let's go back to Annie. I'll get lost if I don't talk about Annie. Annie was history is clear. She had been molested and was about safety.
Mm-hmm.
A question I always have with client children, by the way, is what was going on that the parents did?
Oh, you broke up. You broke up.
Oh,
Hello, hello?
I'm sorry. Say that again. I was going to say one of the questions I have with children who have been molested
Mm-hmm.
is what were their parents doing that they didn't see what was happening?
Yeah.
Right. That answer gives the answer to that question gives. So as we did with Annie's history and the other dynamics become clearer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to sort of go. Annie's mother, it turns out, was very self-absorbed, and her message to Annie was, "When I say you are who I say you are." This is a self-absorbed parent.
Yeah.
Often, self-absorbed parents acknowledge a child's existence only to claim it for themselves, which means the child really doesn't get to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, identity works the same way. Um,
True.
with that self-absorbed parent often taking over the child's identity by claiming the child's success. Oh, you got a smile, Jill. I really like that. Is that making sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Um, in Annie's situation, this was true. So Annie had taught herself a pattern of behavior, being unkempt and dirty,
Yeah.
isolating from others, and being negative about herself.
Yeah.
She She did that in the context of a family where she was not seen or heard, where it was she had no power and control to start with. The pattern Annie got into was self-taught, and here's the hard part. It was connected to good feelings. That's pretty straightforward. If I've been clear enough about that, she learned to be a dirty little girl because when she did that, her uncle didn't
Mm.
molest her as frequently.
Yeah.
So she learned to connect
Mm-hmm.
being a dirty little girl with a sense of safety,
Yeah.
even some power and control in her life.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking,
Yeah, it's just so sad. Breaks my heart to think about this. Someone so young like
Jill,
that, and it's happening, all over. But that's a whole nother issue. But yes, thank you.
that's exactly right. Our society, we have a lot to talk about in terms of our society and how this works. That's not our job here. Um, there's another problem, which I'm. Let me go back just a little bit.
Sure.
So Annie now has bad feelings, negative self talk, isolating and being a dirty little girl, connected with positive feelings of feeling safe and maybe able to control her environment a little. Doesn't that seem to be a problem?
Yeah.
Wait, I say, wait. She's not feeling those good feelings. In this pattern of behavior, what is she feeling? Sad, lonely, and like a loser. That stands out. And always, this is the crux. How can I say to you, Jill, oh, she has this negative pattern of behavior
Mm-hmm.
connected to feeling good? If you
Oh.
don't laugh at me, you probably, yes, thank you, Jill. You're probably not thinking.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you're right. She's feeling two sets of feelings. Um, huh. The key is that the feelings are connected to each other. When she feels the bad feelings, underneath it, she feels the good feelings. So she's feeling bad, miserable, misery on the surface, consciously. Underneath, in her body mind, she's feeling the positive feelings. So if you could literally see Annie, if you had an image of Annie doing her negative behavior pattern, a grown up, dirty little girl, she's feeling miserable, isn't she? And yet, underneath, Annie is feeling those positive feelings. The feelings are connected, self taught. If she wants to feel the positive feelings, what does she have to do? Hard one, hard one. She wants to feel the positive feelings. She has to feel the negative feelings and do the negative behavior. If you want the dog to get the cookie, the dog has to sit. If you want to get the positive feeling, you have to do the negative behavior. Our job is to separate those. Is that clicking?
Hmm. And by the way, love the suspenders. I didn't get to compliment you on them again today from your daughter. Usually do, but we got right into it. You know. But we do have 2 more minutes left in the show, so we kind of wind down for today. With all
Wow,
this, there's
Jill.
a lot. Yeah.
But my kids must be right. I can talk the ears off a scarecrow.
Oh, it's great. It's great. It's great.
um, so I think that's what I wanted to go with that. We connect negative behaviors to positive feelings. We don't do it consciously. It's an unconscious set. The problem is that they are connected, and the job of the coach, the job of the therapist, however you want to put this, is to understand that pattern of learning and disconnect those feelings. And we really do have the ways to do that.
Yeah.
They're very, very modern and
Mm-hmm.
very ancient at the same time. But Jill, we can do it.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
wow. There you
Well,
have it.
yeah.
There you have it.
Oh, well, we have to wrap up for now. And really, I love the conversation, Ross. Tell us how we can contact you. Would you mind sharing?
Thank you, Jill. Thank you. I get all thinking about this. Yes, contact me with my phone number, number one, 413
Mm-hmm.
210 3739. That's 413 210 3739. And you can always check the website. Website also has the other practitioners in the group. And the website is anaffairoftheheart.us.
Thank you.
Anaffairoftheheart.us. My
Always
pleasure, Jill.
appreciate it, Ross. You have a fantastic day, weekend. Hopefully, we'll talk next week when the weather even gets warmer. All right. Thank you for the insight. Bye bye.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.